I've been experimenting on stream and off stream with some wooden beamworks for windows, and since wood is the first material that we get when starting a new game, I decided to make a tutorial for a base that can be built pretty early on and still look fancy thanks to this beamwork on the walls, windows and doors. There's many variants to this kind of beamwork, but for this build I wanted to make it rather straightforward and easy to follow, all while looking intricate. I used mostly wood and corewood and some stone, but only for the floors. They can easily be replaced by wooden floors in the early game. Just make sure that the corewood is touching the ground. The whole base is pretty big inside, allowing for several crafting table areas on each side and at the center. I placed a few extra doors on the sides, but that is absolutely optional. The sleeping and resting quarters are at the back in a sort of compact little nook. There are storages on each corner of the base and an even bigger storage on the floor. This can be extended from side to side and still blend in with the aesthetics of the base. And if more space is needed, the ground in the center can be made into a staircase leading into a basement. This looks much more complex than it is, so let's get on to the tutorial. A word of warning concerning the amount of wood, corewood and stone needed for this build. The base structure is not too expensive, but all the detailing that comes afterwards does require a little forest to make. First, make a rectangle that is 36 by 16 meters, so use stone slabs or floors and place 17 on the long side and 8 on the short side. I used stone here, but it can be wooden floors. We're going to extend the longer sides with 13 slabs on each side, and on the back we're going to extend a 6 by 2 slab area. This will be the nook for the bed. The Corewood structure is pretty easy. Once the floor outline is placed, we can start placing the Corewood beams that will support the whole structure. In the entrance, the beams are spaced by 4 meters, leaving 3 big openings for windows. At the back, we place 4 beams on each corner, in a sort of box shape. The longer interior has a more complex motif. Beams are spaced by 4 meters, 2 meters, 6 meters. The extensions of this long edge also have 2 beams on each corner. This will support the roofs that are here and also enclose the nooks for the storage chests. After that, we need to build the structure upwards for the roof support. The entrance area should be extended with long beams like this. The back area beams are only extended by 1 short beam, so 2 meters. For the long edge of the build, we extend by 6 meters, so 1 long beam and 1 short beam. This will make the roof more interesting and less flat. Also, we can't go higher for the roof support here. We are reaching the limit of the build height with corewood. The extended long edges are to remain at 1 long beam height, so 4 meters. It should look something like this. The roof support is built with a 45-degree angle beam on all the beams that we just placed previously. At the entrance, there needs to be a double roof support like this, and the same thing at the back. The extended areas on the long side also need to have their own 45-degree corewood beams. We're going to add an extra 45-degree corewood beam at the entrance area, poking outside to make a sort of a roof overhang. The same at the back, where the roof is at this same level. On the middle roof part, we're gonna need to add an extra support for the roof, otherwise the thatch roof will break. We're gonna add horizontal beams like this, and then we need to use short wood beams to find the middle part of the section. Use the new snap point created by those small beams and place the extra 45-degree angled beams up to the top. If we don't do this, the thatch roof will break. Some extra horizontal beams midway to support the windows for later here. The overhang on the higher roof is shorter than the entrance, and for that we need a 45-degree X wood piece to create some snap points. Place them on the middle to create a snapping point that is a bit outwards, and place the 45-degree corewood beam on that new edge. The same thing needs to be done on the lower part. So the roofs are placed to cover all the support beams. There will be some overlap where the overhang is short in the lower part of the build. So the base structure is basically done. From here on, there is a lot more freedom as to how you want to do the walls. So this is how I did my beamwork for the walls and windows. Word of warning, this is not bat rate safe. I did test it out, and there are several ways to block their pathing with torches and with rotating the beams, so the space is smaller and the bats can't fit in, but it's not fully bat-proof. So first things first, we need to place a short wood beam on the lower part of the build like this to create snapping points for the window beamworks. The entrance openings also need short beams, so we'll place them here as well. Same thing for the upper window area, short beams all the way from one side to the other. So on the longer edge of the building, first we'll cover the corners that will be the storage areas with Corewood beams. At the top of this edge, use 25 degrees and then 45 degree beams to cover the triangle opening. Next, the window areas. We will add some extra Corewood to split it into 3 separate areas for windows and walls. On either side, we will split it again with some regular wood into 2 window sections, and then add small wood beams on the lower snapping points. We then add diagonal wood beams intersecting each other like this. We will need extra snapping points for the upper diagonal beams, so place a small wall right below the top corner and use the lower snapping point of that wall to place the diagonal beam. Do this on each side to get the pattern done. This will be the motif for most of the walls. For the middle section, I decided to fill it with Corewood so it wouldn't look so monotonous, but windows will work as well. You can leave a door here if you want, or close it off to make more space for crafting tables. Once the lower part is done, on each side we can move to the top part. The sides are also covered with Corewood like this, and in the middle, the windows, we can add some extra Corewood on the top. This will serve as support for the window pattern. Place 45-degree diagonal wood beams in duos, spaced by 1 meter, using the snapping points created by the short beams below. You will need to do the same at the top, hence placing more small beams above, and then placing the diagonal wood beams intersecting the lower ones. This makes this knot-like pattern, which is something I really like. The back of the building will have something similar. Some of the openings will be simply covered with Corewood, and some will have this beamwork pattern. For this particular window, we will need to use doors snapped on each side of the middle snapping point created by the small beams that we just placed earlier. These doors will make some extra snapping points, and use the further snapping point of the doors to place the wooden vertical beams. Then, just like for the windows previously, use a small wall at the top of the diagonal beams to create extra snapping points for the intersecting diagonal pieces like this. Once this is done, extend all the snapping points of the diagonals upwards and downwards with wooden beams. You can use some extra Corewood to cover the irregularities at the top. At the back of the build, do the same technique to find the middle snapping point of the whole section and place 2 doors snapped on opposite corners. This will create extra snapping points, just like before, for placing the wooden vertical beams, and then place the intersecting diagonal pieces. For the side openings, we also need to find the middle point, which is a little more tricky because it's not the same length. For that, we can use the door snapped on the outer small beam on its corner, and then place a wooden beam in the center snapping point of that door. This will not be perfectly centered, there's something like a 0.1 or 0.2 misalignment, but enough that it looks seamless. Once that middle beam placed, we repeat the same process with the doors on each side and then the beams snapped on the edge snapping points of each door. Windows will have the motif a little bit lower than the middle area. Repeat the same process as for the windows and then cover up the remaining gaps with diagonal pieces attached like this. Since the roof here is lower than the others, we fill these inverted V openings with some diagonal wood walls like this, and then some extra diagonal beams at the top. This will prevent the creatures from attempting to go inside through here. For the entrance, we will repeat the process to find the middle point of each window opening and create the same pattern as we did for the rest of the windows. Since these openings are a bit wider than the ones at the back, we will place an extra door on each side to create snapping points for extra wooden beams. This will better enclose the window too. here the intersecting diagonals will be placed 5 meters high. In the middle part, they will be placed higher above the door. Cover up the gaps with extra diagonal beams just like before at the back. At the center opening, we will repeat the same process but place diagonal beams 8 meters high. Once this is done, we can place the doors and remove 3 of the lower wood beams. I used 2 wooden gates on top of each other. This should cover the walls and windows of the build. We can now move on to the detailing and finishing of the build. A lot of wood is necessary here, regular wood but also fine wood. So on all the sides of the roof, we'll use the same technique as here. Place doors snapping their corners to the core wood beams. Then place a diagonal wood beam snapped to the other edge of the door and parallel to the core wood all the way up. Remove the doors and then place extra 45-degree diagonal wood beams like this to create some overhang and some texture. Just turn them by 1 tick. You can then place a dragon head as adornment on the top, snapped to the highest snapping point of the thatch roofs. The sides of the roof will also have some extra wood to cover the irregularities of the thatch texture. Place a door on the corner of the thatch roof and then use the extra snapping point in the middle of the door to snap the horizontal beams. Do this on all the thatch roofs. For the roof tips at the top that don't have wood beams, you can also add horizontal wood beams to tie it all up. After that, we'll need to add decorative wood beams, snapped to these new edges created by the horizontal beams. Use the extra door here to create the same trim as below, and then snap diagonal beams onto the trim. On the biggest part of the roof, we will do the same. This will cover the core wood beams that are kind of poking out inelegantly. If you don't have the snapping points for the right placement, use a small wall to create the missing snap point and then place the diagonal beam on that new snapping point. Use an extra door to create the missing upper snapping points and to make the same trim as we just saw below, and then snap diagonal beams onto that new trim. All the roofs will end up having the same texture with the diagonal wooden beams popping outside the thatch roof. On the tip of the roofs, we can also add some decorative vertical beams poking out halfway. For this, place a core wood beam, snap to the corners where these vertical beams will poke out. Then snap short vertical beams on the core wood. This will be half sunken into the roof. You can also add some extra decorations on the sides, as if they were windows, with some diagonal wooden beams turned slightly inwards like this. The wooden pillars are made of several wooden vertical beams. For this, place doors snapping their corners onto the core wood. Align them with the floors and then turn them 1 tick outwards on each side. Then snap wooden beams on the other corner of the doors, also turning the beam 1 extra tick. Remove the doors and then extend upwards the wood beams. You can add some extra wood beams around the corners to cover the core wood entirely. This will make the pillars have some extra shades and texture that look pretty good, and that should wrap the whole wall and window construction. Lights here are very optional, but they do add some nice glow effects. I like placing them in the diamond openings, and for that, the torches need to be placed on the core wood below the openings. If there is no core wood below it, what you can do is place a temporary core wood beam below like this, place the torches on them, and then remove the core wood. Just make sure you are not playing with fire hazards on. So moving on to the interior part of the build, we will need to place some extra floor towards the inside, all around like this. After that, we need to dig 2 meters deep to place another level of floors below. This can be stone or wood. All around this opening, we can then place chests. I would recommend iron chests because they have a good capacity and they have the right height, but you can use regular chests or barrels if need be. This saves a ton of space that would be otherwise used inside the building. If there is no storage chest available, just cover the top part with some wooden floors. At the center you can place the hearth. Just keep in mind that it needs to be kind of close to the back of the building, where the bed and housing items will be for the rest of the owners. Fill the rest of the middle part with more stone or wooden floors. Another option is to make it into a staircase leading to a basement if you want. Some extra wood beams to line up the floors and cover the gaps here and there. The nooks left for storage are also going to be filled with more chests. Iron chests work great, but you can fit any chest that you want here. I placed 2 layers of chest separated by a wooden floor, and then used the ladder to free place an extra small floor for the upper chests. The back of the building is meant for rested bonus items. It's really open to any kind of layout, but since I was working with sunken storages, I decided to make some extra platforms, place the bed, the throne, the table, and then open some gaps to place extra storages for things like gear and weapons. I also sneakily placed a bathtub below the bed, half hidden by the staircase. Some garlands here and there for decoration, but this is absolutely unnecessary. So the longer sides have these extension areas where the crafting tables can be placed in their own little corners. As mentioned before, I added some extra doors at the center of the walls that you can place the later items there, like the Galder table or the Black Forge. Another option is to place some of the crafting tables in the middle of the room, and since all the storages are conveniently, well, all around, it makes it easy to move around or change the positioning of the tables. The cooking area is also in the center area of the build and close to the bed, so as to get the rested bonus easily, but it can definitely be moved around. There's a lot of space after all. As for the outside areas, I did add some extra platforms for the smelters, also a little entrance with some easy fences using Corewood beams for snapping points, but that is entirely up to you. Platform does give space for more outdoor crafting items, so yeah, that helps wrapping up the whole build. I think that it looks pretty good considering it is mostly made of wood and stone. It has lots of space and high ceilings, so things don't look jammed up. I especially enjoyed figuring out the beamwork, and there will be definitely more of it in the future. But yeah, I hope you liked this build and the tutorial, and if you did, don't forget to give it a thumbs up. The beamworks will continue, so catch you in the next build.